So of that cohort, 1 in 5 have got an eating disorder. 1 in 4 are self-harming.
1 in 4?
1 in 4.
And now, what age range?
17 to 25.
Blimey. I had no idea it was so high.
It's really high and it's just absolutely catastrophic. We are going in a very, very alarming way. So ultimately, we need to be doing things differently and we need to be providing support because social media is always going to be there. I think the social media giants have got to step up. I think the things that they need to put in place now to protect the safety of their users. But ultimately, it's never going to go away. So.
Laura, thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Alfie, you're welcome.
Awesome.
No, seriously, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me on.
No problem. So you're the founder of Inside Out, which is an incredible mental health platform, which you've built from just an idea into now an award-winning company. Let's start with advice for startup founders, people that want to go on that journey of building something really cool. What advice would you give to, aspiring entrepreneurs?
Wow, where to start?
Easy question to get us going.
Easy start to dive into. So I think coming up with the idea is obviously the first kind of part of the journey towards becoming a founder. And I think what I have found has worked really well with Inside Out is we're solving a problem that was pertinent to myself.
Sure.
And so with that, when you solving a problem that exists because you've experienced it firsthand, I think it's a lot easier to then show a true level of authenticity and passion for what you're doing because it comes from a place of I've been there myself and I want to make this better and I want to improve it for other people. Whereas, we do see people that, particularly in our space, have come into it because there's been a huge rise in cases of mental illness and it pains me to say that, but there are people out there that are in it, what can I do in order to get rich quick schemes?
Exactly.
And and it comes through, right? When we're talking to our customers, they can pull out those that are in it for money, those that are in it for actually making a social impact. So that would always be one of my first things, the problem you're solving, how passionate about it are you? Yeah. And is it something you've experienced firsthand and is it painful for you without your solution? Yeah. Because if your solution didn't exist, would the world kind of continue as it is or, would there be a major kind of crick in the road where something needs to kind of come into the market?
So solving your own problem.
Solving your own problem, I'd definitely say. And then I think there's something about getting the right people around you, because we've been through the pains of making bad hires, getting perhaps investors that had different motivations, and that was in a different business. And so I think it's really important that you get people in, both investors and also team members, that are all pulling in the same direction. And for us, working in mental health, it's somewhat easier because people tend to want to work for us because they've experienced their own mental health challenges, and so they kind of buy into the mission and the vision and the values because of their own battles themselves. But hiring that really amazing team around you is so critical to get the right people on board because it can make and break a business essentially. Yeah. And then I'd also say getting it funded in the right possible way. We hear all the time about being bootstrapped and doing things in a lean startup mode, and that's great. And we have tried to do that, but that will limit progress and it will limit success. So I think just being really clear with yourself as to what funding and investment do you need, where's that going to take you to, and when people challenge you on it, holding your ground to say, well, I could do it this way, but this will actually enable us to do this. And I think it's partly your role as a founder to educate people when you're raising investment to make sure that you get the right level of funding in to support the growth of your business. And then I'd say the most important one, I think, is actually speaking to your customers.
Oh, yeah.
What
something that people just never do for some strange reason. Yeah.
Oh, I've seen so many founders where they just go hell for leather into developing a product, push it out into the market, and then they wonder why no one uses it. We spent the best part of a year going out talking to therapists and coaches, talking to end users, talking to HR directors to really understand what were the pain points for them, what were the push and pull triggers that would want them to buy our solution, because we weren't sure when we launched the business whether it should be B2B or B2C to start with. Yeah. And so all of these important questions and important surveys and interviews and so on helped us to understand how to position the business. And so that would be a a number one tip, I think. And never stop talking to your customers either, because even now, 3 and a bit years in, we're still always talking to our customers and our users.
And it's so important for the leadership to keep doing that. It's not something you want just to delegate, because if you are not in touch with what the market needs, then it's hard for you to set that vision that responds to that direction, right? Yeah. You mentioned investment a few times there. You've raised some capital to help build your company. You did a friends and family round. You've got some angels on board. What tips would you give to entrepreneurs that are looking to raise money? Maybe they're struggling to do the pitch or to get in touch with the right people, or inevitably they're getting so many no's and the setback and they just feel like they don't want to keep going. What recommendations would you give to those that are looking to raise like you have done?
Yeah, I think first of all, never give up would always be my number one. There will always, you never know when that next conversation, that next phone call might lead to something. So that would be how I'm going to sort of frame this answer to that question. Never give up. If you don't enjoy raising money, 2 things I would encourage you to think about. Is a founder and running a company the right thing for you? Because inevitably you will always have to raise money if you're in the tech space, unless you're lucky enough to get to break even and you don't need to raise capital. Yeah. But that will always be kind of the backbone to the business, and part of your role as a founder is going out selling the business to investors and raising that capital, which if it doesn't come easily to you, and to be honest, at the beginning of the journey, it was something I hated doing. I was like selling my soul to the devil. I really didn't like it. But you build confidence over time. You get more used to going out and pitching. But if you're finding that it's not your forte, I would find, a co-founder if you don't already have one, or somebody else, within your senior leadership team that can support you with that part of the journey. And yes, you'll probably still be the one going out to do the pitches, but if they can help with lead generation. And one of the things that we do at Inside Out is think about raising investment as a sales pipeline. So, building out that funnel, identifying who we want our investors to be, and then from there kind of creating lists of people that we want to reach out to. And we've developed ICPs for the investors. So for us it was
initial like customer profile?
Basically. So your ICP is your customer profile, ideal customer profile. And ultimately, who do we want them to be? So for us, yes, we're a commercial business, but we're also social impact. And so we want to bring in investors that understand that we are here to make a difference. We save lives, ultimately. We get feedback each day saying, you've improved my life, and sometimes you've even saved my life, and which is amazing. And that gets us out of bed on the really hard days where things don't seemingly are going right at that point in time. And having investors where they're measuring daily active users, monthly active users, like for us, that's not the right metric, because ultimately we want people to come to us, use our platform, and when they feel better, we'll happily let them go back out into the world without us.
You don't want to keep them forever, do you?
No, exactly, because we don't want to drive addiction to the platform. So for us, we've had to educate some investors around that. And sometimes we've even just parked the conversation and just said, look, this isn't the right fit for us. And perhaps, let's leave the conversation here for now, because it is important you get the investors that understand in your mission, your vision, your values, obviously, but also the right business reporting metrics. So that, because they'll be pushing you to achieve, whatever KPIs and milestones that you've agreed to at the outset. But if they're not the right ones for you in the business, it can completely derail you and send you off in a different tangent. So I'd say stay true to, your business. You know your business better than anyone does. You know where that business is going. You understand your customers. You understand your users in a way that your investors won't. So that's your responsibility to communicate that clearly from the outset, to a point where we've actually turned down term sheets. So we had a couple of term sheets for several million on the table, and for various reasons, we've turned them down and we've walked away. Bold.
Scary to do, but
scary and bold.
You're right. It's a short-term loss for a long-term gain, because if you're not standing by those principles and those beliefs, and if you're working for the investors instead of the investors working and supporting you, it's not the dynamic which is going to be successful long-term, is it?
No, exactly that. And I think it's so important to stay true to yourself and your business and to get that relationship right, because it's essentially, you've probably heard this before, it's a marriage, getting into bed with your investors, and they're on your cap table, and once they're there, you don't want to have to go through the painful process of a breakup. So, ultimately, you want them to help you succeed, and obviously they want you to succeed for their own reports and so on. So, it's really important, I think, at the outset just to kind of get those right investors on board. So I'd go about mapping out your ICPs, whether that's angel investors, whether that is VCs or so on, and then consider the right point for you to bring on VCs. There are so many different funding models out there now. You know, maybe the traditional VC route might not be the best one for you. So it's the most common, it's the most sexy to some extent, but I would just say consider what's the right options for you. And
you this is not your first rodeo with Inside Out. You did Jambo beforehand. So what are you doing, I guess, differently as like a second, third-time founder, which you wish you did as a first-time founder? Because I find second-time founders, third-time founders, they've often forgot more than first-time founders ever learned to begin with. Like they kind of have that gut, that intuition that they've developed for all the mistakes and the wins and the losses of the first one. What are you doing differently this time?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're talking to our users and our customers.
Okay, yeah.
So we made that mistake. We just went hell for leather into building a product.
Sure.
And then weren't really sure how we were going to take it to market either. So didn't have a defined go-to-market strategy with a clear pricing model or anything. We had this kind of idea of creating this networking app for business travelers, but hadn't really thought through the practicalities other than let's go and build a beautiful product. Okay. So that was the big thing. And then, like I say, getting it funded properly, I think was important. Some of the other learnings, we tried to be so broad with Jambo in terms of
sell to everybody.
Yeah, you were like, we can sell it into hotels, we can sell it into airports, we can sell it into businesses, we can go to consumers, we can go to networking groups. So we could see so many different verticals where it could sit, but ultimately we weren't focused on any particular vertical. And we had a very slim team in that business, and we didn't have the right resources in the team either to take it to market. So that was a huge learning.
Hey, this podcast is brought to you by WeLoveAlpha.com. If you're looking to grow and hire and scale your software engineering team in the UK, then go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software developers on the market. Everything across Java to C# to PHP to Python to React and Angular and mobile and more. Go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software engineers in the UK now.
If you try to sell to everybody, you're selling to nobody, right? You need to really, really niche down and then nail one market and then do the next one, then do the next one, but try to do everything at the same time. Like Amazon started selling books. Facebook was to connect people at Harvard University, right? I agree completely with what you said around, like getting the feedback and then building on top of that step by step. Some of the best businesses in the world, they started as like a one-page website or like a Google document or something, or a Notion document or something like that. Whereas the people that go out and they build something extraordinary and then try and sell it, if you want to make any changes, you need to go back 20 steps. And so, I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think as a first-time founder, you're in this kind of bubble of excitement, and it's all new. And I'd come from a corporate life, so I'd been in the consulting world for many years.
Yeah, me too. You did management consulting.
Yeah, that's right. So you're kind of in this, a city suit to them being a digital person. Wearing jeans and trainers to work. It was a kind of a foreign concept, and I could feel myself getting swept up in the hype of a startup and being creative and so on, and that was amazing. But kind of my point I made earlier about when you're considering whether or not you want to run a company and what the problem is you're solving, is going back to that pain point. And I thought connecting people on travel was a pain point, because it was. For me, it was a pain point when I was traveling, and I was stuck in New York and Dubai and Toronto and these amazing cities with no one to go and have dinner with, and didn't want to use dating apps. In fact, I don't think Tinder was even, or Bumble or Hinge or any of the dating apps today. They weren't even around at that point, so it wasn't even possible. But when you're in a relationship, they're not the platforms to use. So, we kind of thought we were solving this real world problem. But then, after I went through my own struggles with mental health, and that's why I left the consulting world in the first place. I think it just made me realize let me rephrase that. It just made me realize the importance of solving a problem you genuinely care about. It was a nice to solve problem, but it wasn't a must-have.
Burning desire.
Yeah, like gut-wrenching. Oh my gosh, I absolutely have to solve this problem. And I think that fire for Inside Out had always been inside me since I went through my own struggles. But the timing just wasn't right. And, you know, going out talking to HR managers in 2016, 2017, the word mental health didn't even fall on their radar, let alone them want to do anything about it, right? So it kind of fell into doing Jambo at that point. But then obviously as we saw the market change and attitudes change, and there was a pivotal moment I remember in 2018 where the Princes launched Heads Together and Rio Ferdinand started talking about mental health and Ruby Wax and some other personalities. I just thought now is absolutely the time for this business. And that was that kind of shift. Whilst I was also having conversations with a friend of mine, we were in a WeWork at the time, and he was putting solar panels into communities in Africa so they could have power.
Okay.
And I'm doing a networking app.
Yeah.
It was kind of that moment of, what am I doing?
You felt the compelling desire to go to add value and make the world a better place.
Yeah. And just, you know, help people become happier and healthier. And you know, that's what keeps us going on a daily basis. Because when the tough is tough, and let's face it, it is a roller coaster, right? There are really big highs, but there are really low lows as well. That, you know, you need to have that grit and determination and keep your problem you're solving at the centre of your attention and not deviate away from that to make sure that you do continue back onto the next high, which will come.
Yeah. Keep the main thing the main thing. Yeah. You're using quite a lot of AI in your business, right? You've got like Remy, the AI coach, and using other cutting edge technologies. What's your future on AI in mental health? Like, could AI chatbots replace therapists one day? Like, what are your thoughts on that, like, $1 trillion question?
Oh, it's a scary thought.
Yeah.
It's funny you say this because someone asked me this 2 years ago about the use of AI in mental health, and I was like, absolutely not.
That was before ChatGPT.
Before ChatGPT, yeah. I'd seen examples of AI chatbots where I tested them and I'd put in, you know, I feel suicidal, or I want to hurt myself, or I want to hurt someone else. And they'd come back saying, really great to hear you feel that way. I'm like, oh no, like, no, absolutely not. So yeah, I'd seen some really bad examples of products in the market at that point in time. Like I say, this was before ChatGPT and kind of the rise of LLMs that we've seen over the last 12 months or so. With that, there was a pivotal point in time where we've seen the increase in number of people wanting to access mental health services. So on the back of the pandemic, for example, there are more people now coming out saying, look, I've been struggling. And that's been a huge trigger for a lot of people around loneliness, relationships, financial anxiety, and so on. Feeling loss of connections, feeling like they don't belong to communities anymore, and they've lost all those social interactions. And then we've got a younger cohort coming through, the Gen Zs, where perhaps they've missed out on university, they've not had that opportunity to go and build relationships in a mass setting and so on, that are now struggling to communicate, they're struggling to forge adult relationships and so on. And there means a whole array of things. There's trauma of being locked down. Yeah. And there's a lot of people now that have just completely wiped that phase of their life out of their minds. And that's a coping mechanism to trauma. The brain works in ways to try and protect us. Yeah. So we're seeing all of these kind of trends coming through. The stigma's decreased around mental health. So more people are accessing services, which is amazing. And, like I say, you've got the rise of the pandemic, but you've also got the stigma come down. But that's resulted in a huge influx of people now wanting to access support. But the therapist pool hasn't changed size. So, when we started Inside Out, we had number of users, number of therapists. Over the course of the pandemic, it became equal. Yeah. And it's gone the other way now, to a point where we've got 1 in 6 adults on wait lists. We've got, we've got 1 in 6 adults on wait lists that are averaging from 9 months to 2 years, depending on where you are in the country, for adult services, 3 to 5 years for child and adolescent mental health services. We've got a statistic I saw the other day from the World Health Organization that there's 1 therapist per 100,000 population globally.
Whoa.
I mean, it's insane, right? When you think about it like that. And obviously, you're going into third world countries and things like that, and that's how you get to that ratio. But it's complete madness. And ultimately, by the end of 2025, we're going to be in a huge deficit of practitioners to the sum of around 10 million. So what do? It takes 3 years to train a therapist. It takes a couple of years for them to then go and get experience. So 5 years training, essentially, and experience. Yeah. How are we ever going to, even if we started today and we had the funding available to do that, how are we ever going to train enough therapists in the next 5 years to cater for the demand when the demand for mental health services is going up and up and up and up? So even if we started today in 5 years' time, we still wouldn't have enough therapists. So we now need to look at new technologies to treat mental health illness and provide different services, because human therapy is great, and I'm a firm believer that we should never, ever get rid of human therapists. And as good as AI will ever be, talking to a bot, essentially, even if it's an avatar, you're never going to have the same relationship and the same connection and empathy than you'll have with that human
Seems
therapist.
Unlikely, right? Yeah.
It does. So the way that we're now positioning Inside Out is we have Remy, who's our AI coach. Remy's able to run triaging, so we take into account multiple different biomarkers, so physical health and mental health data sets, and we can then triage you through, based on those data sets, to different interventions. So we have Remy conversational chat, and at the moment that's text-to-text and speech-to-speech. Over time, that will become an avatar with real-time voice generation behind it. It's uncanny valley at the moment. It's not quite there yet. So at the moment, it's just text-to-text, speech-to-speech. But it will be an actual avatar you can talk to for mild symptoms. Because, of course, there are people that don't want to speak to a human. Again, we're seeing a lot of younger people coming through. The thought of picking up the phone, going to speak to someone in real life is quite scary and it's quite daunting. Neurodivergent populations, the same thing. So there will always be a community of people that want to speak to an AI therapist, and then there'll also be a community of people that don't. So we're building out this triaging process to do that. Then there'll also be, we're building at the moment, which I think is really exciting, the ability to deliver CBT courses, but using Gen AI, so you can personalize the scenarios and the exercises to that particular individual based on their scenario in a way that's not been possible to date. And then that will be delivered in the mobile app and in a self-taught way. And then we have the human therapy as well. So it's full spectrum.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you're embracing new technologies like AI as opposed to being fearful and kind of running away from them, which a lot of other companies are doing. What about virtual reality? What are your thoughts on like VR immersive, mental health programs?
Yeah. So if you'd asked me this question about a year ago, I'd have been all in. We thought it was the bee's knees. We thought it was amazing. And it is amazing, right? It still is amazing. I think virtual reality, as we know, has not had the uptake that we all expected.
It's still on that journey, isn't it?
It's on a very kind of slow upward curve. And I think, the Vision Pro has been released in America. It's not yet here. When that comes over here, I think, maybe things will change. Maybe there'll be a bit of a buzz around it. But just the general accessibility to headsets, is and has been and will continue to be a problem at that level of scale. And the price point of the Vision Pro, I think, will definitely price a lot of people out of the market. But we are seeing it booming in education, and we are seeing it booming in healthcare. So the NHS are very much adopting immersive technologies in VR to help patients. And we've started doing clinical trials. We've done a couple of NHS accelerators. We've had Innovate UK funding to build out essentially the program we've got on mobile in VR. So the device just becomes the delivery mechanism, but the program remains the same. Obviously, with the exception of the human therapy, that's done on a video call on the mobile, but the other two elements are very much the same. Yeah. And we found it to be hugely successful. So over just a matter of minutes, we can reduce anxiety and depression, feelings of depression by over 84%, improve product and focus by over 75%. So the outcomes, which are now being, like I say, run in clinical trials, are very, very encouraging. But that route to market piece is behind.
Yeah, the channel itself, the content works. The results are there, but the mechanism to which people get that information, putting it on a headset, it's still an issue.
Yeah, and I think let's be realistic about it, because when you're talking about mental health and feeling disconnected and lonely, then we're saying to you, go and put on a VR headset
and put a screen right
and put
here.
a screen right in front of your face.
Yeah.
The two of them don't really go together. But if we're talking about virtual reality in terms of reducing stress and anxiety, and meditations and mindfulness, it works really well. Because like a lot of the challenges I have with meditation are the ability to focus and to stay with that meditation. And more often than not, I'm like, this is too hard. Just put it down, get it out the way. Whereas with the virtual reality, we can take you into the Maldives or the Northern Lights or the Amazon jungle. And so you've automatically got those visual triggers. And then the meditation is a lot easier to follow.
Yeah, definitely. What about social media? Like, that seems to be often correlated to bad mental health. What are your thoughts on the addictiveness of TikTok and apps, that Instagram in particular can make people feel really depressed and anxious. Do you think social media could be destroying people's mental health?
Got one word for you.
Yes.
Yes. It's a big fat yes. I mean, let's look at to put some evidence behind this, let's look at the statistics. So if we look at the older group of millennials, so that's kind of your late 30-year-olds, social media has very much been a part of their life. They are 50% less likely to suffer with anxiety than Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Gen Alpha being our teenagers, Gen Z being our 20-year-olds. Why? Social media. You know, body image. We've seen 17 to 25-year-olds, some alarming statistics. So of that cohort, 1 in 5 have got an eating disorder. 1 in 4 are self-harming.
1 in 4?
1 in 4.
And now, what age range?
17 to 25.
Blimey. I had no idea it was so high.
It's really high, and it's just absolutely catastrophic. We are going in a very, very alarming way. So ultimately, you know, we need to be doing things differently, and we need to be providing support, because social media is always going to be there. I think the social media giants have got to step up. I think the things that they need to put in place now to protect the safety of their users. But ultimately, you know, it's never going to go away. So it's about educating people around psychoeducation to say, you know, here are the risks about engaging with social media, helping to educate them on how to manage their own mental health, because let's face it, they're not going to not engage with social. Ultimately, you know, we need to be helping them to say, you know, if you are feeling low, you are feeling anxious, you are worried about body dysmorphia, you are wanting to hurt yourself or someone else, here's the coping mechanisms to go with that.
Instead of the algorithm just giving you more of the
just
negative.
Pumping more in. And, you know, we've heard these horror stories of people that have taken their own lives and they've started searching for tips on how to do so, and then their feed is just filled with it. You know, and as soon as those those keywords are put into social media, then it should be coming back saying, you should go and speak to a therapist, you know, and cut their access.
So aside from cutting down on social media, what other advice would you give to people that want to improve their mental health, and as well as checking out your app, of course? But what else should people be doing?
Talk. You know, it's an old wives' tale. Problem shared is a problem halved, right? I still stand by that, absolutely. It's, first of all, don't be afraid to speak. You know, the chances are whoever you talk to is probably going through something similar. 1 in 2 of us will have a mental health challenge this year. Half of the population.
2 of us here right now.
2 of us here right now, right, exactly.
Who's it going to be?
So I'm pretty stressed at the moment, so probably quite anxious. But no, in all seriousness, you know, it's the chances are that people next to you, you know, will understand what you're going through. Your friends will understand. Maybe they've already shared with you, maybe they haven't. Your family will understand as well. So don't be afraid to speak to somebody. There's always somebody that will listen. Even if you don't feel comfortable talking to someone that you know, talk to someone you don't know. You know, there's a lot of charities out there that are absolutely amazing. There are platforms like Inside Out. You don't have to wait months, if not years, on the NHS. There are alternative ways to access support. So I would absolutely suggest you have a look at those. So aside from talking to somebody, exercise is a really, really great booster. And anyone that knows me well will know how addicted I am to exercise. And it's my coping mechanism. For many reasons. One, it's a stress release. So going into that environment, I see my friends. I've built a friendship group. I've built a community in the gym. So I'm getting that power of connection. I'm getting to laugh and joke around with my friends, which lifts my mood without even having done any exercise. And then I feel a belonging because I feel a part of something. Get that enjoyment factor. Then there's the actual exercises. So we know that exercising 4 to 5 times a week for 30 plus minutes at a pace where you can just about hold a conversation, but it's difficult to do so. So you don't need to be dead on your back, you know, struggling to breathe, but just moderate intensity exercise. That gets the feel-good hormones going. The endorphins, it increases the serotonin, it reduces the cortisol, the bad hormone, the stress hormone. We know, and adrenaline, also a negative hormone. Strength training is also proven to have the same benefits. And in fact, performing 2 to 3 sessions a week of strength training can improve cognitive function in later life. So the brain is fluffy. The brain is a fluffy mass. And when we do things like drink alcohol, smoke, take drugs, under chronic stress for a prolonged period of time, our fluffy brain mass shrinks, and therefore our cognitive function declines. But even if we have been drinking to excess or smoking, it's not too late to stop. And actually the positive is it's all reversible. And so by exercising, we can start to increase the fluffiness of our brain again, which in turn will help with preventing the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia in later life. So they've got all those types of things, being outside in nature, getting vitamin D, getting natural sunlight, breath work, meditations, painting, drawing, lots of different things, and journaling's really good. If you don't feel comfortable talking to someone, get it down on paper.
Yeah, there were a couple of things you said there which I definitely agree with. The talking to people, I find that people often can find that really, really hard and they kind of bottle it up. One of the most I can't remember where I heard this, but one of the most powerful questions I heard somebody say was like, oh, hey Laura, how are you? But how are you really? Something like, it was along those lines. And it was so disarming. It was like, oh, I feel like I can share all my feelings, right? So I definitely agree with the talking piece. And you mentioned around exercise. A few years ago on the Silicon Roundabout podcast, you said that the more that you exercise, the better you feel. And I can certainly testify to that firsthand. I do 30 minutes every morning, walk the dog, and then it sounds like very cliche, but then I take a cold shower. And it's almost impossible for me to feel sad after doing that, because my body it's such a state of it's like vibrating. It's like exciting, and I feel like if I wasn't doing that, it would be so easy just to fall into a slump sometimes, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, 100%, it really does. I mean, there's a few things in that. So waking up, going straight to your desk and drinking coffee, really, really, really not healthy. Like alarm bells are going off, get outside, clear the head, go for a walk.
Sunlight.
Exactly.
In the eyes.
So
I sound like Huberman right now, but yeah.
yeah, I mean, exercise, it helps to kind of flush through the body as well, gets things moving.
Yeah. So how do you fuel it properly?
So fueling your body properly is really important for our mental health. Eating junk food increases sugar levels. It can cause those mood swings, the dips throughout the course of the day. It can make us feel tired, therefore we eat more junk food. And it's a cyclical cycle. And then when we're in that state, we see the onset of depression coming in quite aggressively with some individuals. So eating a balanced diet, it's not rocket science, but drinking 3 to 4 litres of water a day can actually help with cognitive function. If we're dehydrated, our ability to perform basic tasks can sometimes become impaired. So whilst you might think you're getting water in your tea and your coffee, they're still diuretics. So having 3 to 4 litres of water a day, definitely. Eating a colourful meal, have a colourful plate.
Greens and
reds and oranges and yellows and purples, all the different food types. And people will say to me, well, I'm not eating carbohydrates because I want to lose weight. Okay, shock horror. Carbohydrates are not your enemy. They're an important source of fuel. But eating processed carbohydrates, can cause the sugar spikes, which then lead to our dips in mood and so on, which has been proven. So having a balanced diet, getting enough protein in your diet, getting enough natural carbohydrates, fruit and vegetables. Have treats by all means. I love Jaffa cakes.
Yes, who doesn't? I love Jaffa cakes. Yeah,
they're my favourite, but it's all within moderation.
Yeah, so you're saying that the secret to strong mental health is a very holistic approach of everything from having a great diet to exercising to surrounding yourself with positive, uplifting people to getting rid of all the depressive external sources that can interfere with your mind and your mindset, and just keeping it consistent, doing it on a regular basis and not trying to falling off the horse.
Yeah, and then the other pillar that we've not mentioned is sleep.
Of course.
Yeah, just getting 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep, it makes a world of difference.
That's what I need, yeah. Yeah.
So having a room that is well ventilated, blackout blinds in summer, they're a must for me. Earplugs in London, it's a busy, noisy place, again, a must for me. No blue light before you go to bed for at least an hour or so, because then that kind of gets the brain triggered and all fired up and all the synapses going, and find it difficult to then either fall or stay asleep throughout the course of the night. Yes. So there are lots of things that you can do to improve your sleep, but sleep is so important for our mood, and we know that when we're tired we get agitated, we get angry, we get stressed, we feel worse about ourselves. Depression can kick in, but also you have the chronic implications of insomnia on our physical health as well. The body will start to deteriorate over time if we're not getting enough sleep.
I've just started using blackout blinds, and they're almost too good because for the first time ever, I've been sleeping through my alarm. but they work. They're really powerful.
They are. When it's getting light of 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, they're an absolute godsend. In fact, I'm going to Glastonbury in a few weeks, and I've just bought a new tent. I have one, but it's blackout. It's a blackout tent. So excited.
I love that. Let's finish with this. A few years ago on Instagram, you posted a quote, which I really liked. It said, "Stick to the facts and focus on what you can control." Stick to the facts and focus on what you can control. I think it's a good summary here, because everything that you've talked about has been very much based in science, based in evidence, based in study, and you built your platform, your business around those key concepts, right? When you posted that, it was a couple of years ago, but where were you coming at? Like, what are your thoughts? Why should people stick to the facts and focus on what they can control? Why is that key?
There's a few things. I think when I posted that, we were coming out the back of the pandemic, and I think everyone was getting very anxious around the pandemic, and seemingly we were being told what to do, when to do it, when we could go outside, who we could see, and that was causing a lot of people to feel anxious, depressed, and so on. Then inevitably there have been world events like the wars and so on as well. So I kind of was coming at this from multiple different angles. One was around there are big world events going on right now. There's a lot of fake news around it. So listen to what's true and focus on the truth, and try not to get distracted with noise that's happening elsewhere. Our brains can trick us. They can lead us into thinking negative thought patterns, and we can make up our own narrative around stories. So let me come up with a scenario here. Let's use a relationship scenario here, right? You've not heard from someone that you're really, really keen on, and you've been texting all of a sudden, and you've not heard from them for a period of time with no explanation. Ghosting happens very commonly in today's world, unfortunately. So your mind automatically goes into that space of, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough or good looking enough, they've met someone else, I'm not worthy of their attention, I don't deserve them anyway, I deserve to be treated like this because that's what I know, because this has happened to me before. So all of these negative things, and then our brain clamps onto these negative thoughts and won't let them go, because it's so easy for us to believe it that we go, oh, well, that must be true. And then we add to that of, okay, no, I'm definitely not worthy enough, because look at me, look at myself in the mirror. I don't have the body shape I want, so therefore, why would this person date me? All these different things. And then we can say, this person may have more money, they might be more fun than me, they might have a better friendship group than me. And you start layering and layering and layering up, and all of a sudden, you've spiraled yourself into the depths of depression based on somebody you might have spoken to a couple of times, you may have been on 1 or 2 dates with.
False assumptions.
Yeah, and it turns
out, that rabbit hole. Yeah.
Exactly, and it turns out that they've just been busy at work, or they've been travelling, or something's come up, and none of that is true at all. So what I would always say is question the facts. So hold on to the facts. What do you know? You know that they like you because they've been messaging you. You may or may not have met up with them already. You had a good time with them. There's been no indication that they wouldn't get back in touch with you. So hold on to that. Hold on to the positives. So it's about rewiring our brains to focus on what we know and the facts, rather than letting ourselves spiral into our own narratives that is based on information that we've made up to plug the gaps in the information that we have.
What we can control as well it's so key, right? Because you can't control what somebody is doing in their own time. You can only control what you do, what you think, what you act. And yes, there's war going on. There's all these terrible situations in the world, but don't get too caught up into it, because ultimately you're not going to be able to solve those issues. You're going to be able to solve your issues and your problems, and
And ultimately, you are the most important person in the room.
Yes.
You are the person that loves you the most.
Yeah.
So hold on to that. You are amazing. You have amazing friends around you. You have friends and family that love you, I'm sure. You are good at what you do. Yeah. Write down all the positive things. And if you can't think of any, write them down. Journal, gratitude. 3 times, write down 3 times, sorry, I can't speak. Write down 3 things a day that you're grateful for, and those positive energies and that positive thought process will start to come back again.
I use gratitude lists every day. I usually just do one thing. I used to do 3, but I just do one and I really, really focus on it for a couple of minutes. And it's like such an instant mindset shift. I just instantly feel positive afterwards. So
I take a picture of something I'm grateful for every day.
Yeah, that's
and
cool,
then make a log of it,
Yeah.
which is really nice. And then a little affirmation.
yeah, I've seen people do that with like really basic things, like I don't know, like a leaf or a flower or like, you know, some fruit or something, like, you know, rather than like your watch or something, right? And I find it works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, amazing, Laura. That was great. It was good to get your perspective on mental health, on how to be happy and positive, and how to build great companies whilst you're in a great frame of mind, because it can be so hard to get caught up in the thick of it when you're trying to build something great. If people have resonated with this, if they want to check out your app, your platform, where should they go?
Great question. So they can go to so Let the Inside Out is the official name. We say Inside Out for short because we're lazy. So lettheinsideout.com. They can reach me on social media at Laura J. Stembridge, and they can reach us on LinkedIn with Inside Out or via myself.
Amazing. Cool. All right. Thank you.
Great. And never give up.
Hey, thanks for watching this podcast. Make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, comment, etc., etc. And I'll see you in the next episode.